Okay, we are going to be able to kick things off here. And I'm pretty happy with this overall. Turn 1, we can play Serum Visions. Not someone that loves to run out the turn 1 Serum Visions. Just because we don't know what we're playing against. So we don't know what to look for. But yeah, I'm going to go for it. Let's go ahead and Visions. Definitely going to put the Delta on the bottom, keep the Cryptic Command. And we're going to make that decision pretty much regardless of the matchup. The 5th land, not so important right now. Cryptic Command is just a generic good card to have. Cloudfin Raptor. Alright, let's get this party started. So, we are playing against the Evolve deck. That's a new deck in this format. Not something I have had the pleasure of playing against before, so pardon me if I make a mistake against it. But I think we just want to pass here and hold up Remand. We could just get the Raptor off the board by bolting it right now, and there's merit to doing that because of cards like Pongify that our opponent could play on their creature to then turn it into a 3/3. So we'll see. There's an experiment one, so we could remand it. If we do remand it, our opponent's just going to replay it, but I think I like just going for the remand. I don't think this deck has a ton of expensive cards. And it may have just been right to Lightning Bolt on turn 2, even though it wasn't super mana efficient. We might just want to go ahead and... Well, now we drew Electrolyze, which was definitely one of our better draws. So, yep, let's go ahead and cast that here. Before our opponent's allowed to untap and do some crazy things, which certainly is a possibility. What to get rid of, I'm going to go for the Raptor. Our opponent might not have more creatures to evolve this experiment one, and we drew exactly what we were looking for, so that's always a good feeling. So now thinking, okay, what sort of counter magic does this deck play? Those sorts of things are certainly something that you should be thinking about in this situation. So there's a Geist and a Renegade. Okay, so that was actually a very good turn for our opponent. We're going to be taking 5 here. And not great. Okay, well, couple of options. We could bolt away the Renegade and opt this turn, which seems reasonable. I kind of like that. Now, yeah, I think that's where I'm looking to go right now. I'm gonna opt to start things off. Emrakul, do not need another one of those. Of course, we can't bolt the experiment one profitably because our opponent can regenerate it, and cannot bolt an undying creature profitably either. So I'm going to throw the lightning bolt at the Renegade, play the Steam Vents tapped, and pass the turn back. And on our next turn, we're probably just going to be jamming on the Through the Breach. I don't see great reasons not to. I know that this deck has a variety of counter spells coming out of the sideboard. I don't know that it has that many in the main deck. So that's kind of my thinking in terms of just going for it here. Also, we're at a relatively low life total. Not sure we have the ability. And so now if our opponent, well, okay, so our opponent does still have access to blue mana, it looks like. Dryad Arbor, that's a nice interaction. It's going to be able to evolve the Raptor and an Avatar, but our opponent, well, okay, so let's think. Our opponent now does have a blocker to block the Emrakul, but well, so all of a sudden it looks like we have found ourselves in a pretty awkward situation where we can go through the breach, right? We can put Emrakul onto the battlefield. We can then annihilate our opponent. Now, they're likely to leave in play the Experiment one and the Cloudfin Raptor, or even the Avatar and the Geist. So actually, that play just doesn't work. We actually cannot through the breach Emrakul this turn. So we have to rely on Cryptic Command to tap our opponent's team down. So that's weird. I thought we were just going to win the game, but in fact our opponent has 6 permanents they can sacrifice, and then they have a blocker, a flyer, to block the Emrakul. So now the plan is for our opponent not to have a flyer next turn, for us to resolve this Cryptic Command to tap all of our opponent's creatures and draw a card. Okay, so considering that resolved, our opponent probably doesn't have anything. And so we should be able to win on our next turn. And if for some reason we don't win, well, then we lose. But I think we're going to win. And the Avatar of the Resolute also had reach. So our opponent had two essentially flying blockers last turn, but now our opponent does not have any blockers for the Emrakul. So we're not relying on the Annihilator to win us the game. We're just relying on this Emrakul getting a hit in. And it looks like that is going to happen. So this is a very peculiar deck, this Evolve Shenanigans strategy. Okay, so now the real question is how to sideboard, right? We know that our opponent is going to be boarding in counterspells, which is a very real problem for us. Because we can no longer rely on the Through the Breach plus Emrakul plan. I think we have to board in the Anger of the Gods for sure. I like Entrancing Melody. I like going more removal heavy. So I like Karanos as well. Vendilion Click seems solid. Not sure about Rotes. Not sure about Dispel, although I think Dispel might be good too. Although now all of a sudden we see that we're looking at potentially boarding in a lot of cards. But I kind of like taking out the Blood Moon and Spreading Seas package. Essentially it's a package. Once we take out Blood Moon, it doesn't make a ton of sense to leave in Spreading Seas. It does mean that we are that our opponent can search out things like Dryad Arbor. But if our opponent's savvy, they're playing a 2-color deck, they can search out for Island and Forest within the first couple turns. Remand also seems pretty bad here. We used a remand early in the game last game, and it wasn't very impressive by any means. Roast. Unfortunately, our opponent does have a decent amount of flyers. I'm going to board in 1, just taking out all of our remands, leaving in Dispel, and more removal. I think we still want the full package here of Through the Breach and Emrakul to try to win the game. Alright, let's give this a whirl. Why not? Cryptic seems fine, but once again, I expect our opponent to be boarding in counterspells. So their plan is going to be to get these early creatures down, and then, unlike last game, have a counter to back them up. I think we have to keep this. It's actually not great, but we have double Through the Breach. So if we can survive, maybe we go through the breach. Our opponent, say, counters maybe the first Through the Breach. Maybe we get the second one to resolve and then win the game. You know, that's optimistic thinking, but our opponent did take a mulligan. And there's a Young Wolf. So Young Wolf works well with the cards we didn't see, but we know are in our opponent's deck, like the Pongify. And there's another one, too, that's basically Rapid Hybridization, I believe it is, that kills a creature, and then you get a 3/3. The owner of that creature gets a 3/3. So our opponent could use something like alright, destroy my own Young Wolf, get a 3/3, then it comes back as a 2/2. So maybe we'll even see that right now. Hard to say. Because our opponent, those removal spells are not actually going to be good against our creatures. We don't have many creatures to begin with, and Emrakul can't be targeted by any sort of that nonsense. So, alright, a 1/1 into a 2/1 isn't the scariest of starts. So, it may be that a turn 5 Through the Breach is going to be fast enough. That's what we're hoping for. And now I'm kind of wishing I had Blood Moon just because our opponent has 2 non-basics in play, but that's results-oriented thinking. So I'm going to fetch out a land with this Misty Rainforest first. That kind of gives us a perfect Serum Visions, meaning we don't have to fetch next turn. So if we scry 2 cards to the top, we don't have to lose any of the cards we scry to the top, and it helps us thin our deck a little bit, gives us more information. So we definitely don't want both of these lands. Do we want one even? I don't think we need one of these lands. I think we can find a land here. Yeah. I'm just gonna bottom these. We may need an interactive spell next turn to be able to win this game. So we might actually need something like a Lightning Bolt or an Electrolyze. We don't know. It's going to depend on how aggressive our opponent's draw is, if they have another nice follow-up here or not. Okay, so it is a Young Wolf, so not the best, but we still have to be worried about potential counter magic. So, alright. I am going to go ahead and play out this Snapcaster Mage right now. I'm not really sure what else we would do with it besides cast it now, target the Serum Visions, and just dig a bit deeper in our deck. Unfortunately, it's not a good blocker at all. Our opponent has 3 creatures with Undying. Alright, so we definitely don't want the island. The bolts. I'm going to put it on top. I'm not sure it's going to be relevant, but I'll still put it there. So I think we actually don't want to trade off the Snapcaster Mage. And there's the Pongify that I was mentioning. So our opponent actually did have it. And that's pretty bad news. So now if our opponent does actually have a counterspell, I believe we are dead. I believe we're dead to a single counterspell. I'm going to put the Snapcaster in front of a Young Wolf there. Alright, so our opponent has one card left in hand. What is it? Is it the counterspell? That's the question, right, that we have to ask. Well, I'm just gonna pass the turn. Go for the same Cryptic Command line here. Don't think it matters to do it upkeep because a counterspell is still gonna beat us next turn because we're just gonna go for Emrakul through the Breach plus Emrakul most likely. So this plays around some weird haste creature. So alright, let's go for the Cryptic Command. Hope it resolves. Cross our fingers. And no. So our opponent just almost certainly just had that dispel because they were holding up that breeding pool. It looked like they had it. Probably they did have it, but there was nothing we could do. Okay. Game 3 it is. So on the play, maybe we want to reevaluate our game plan. We weren't able to find Anger the Gods, which would have been just amazing. It seems just the perfect card for the matchup, the card we're looking to draw the most. Also, Entrancing Melody would have been good. Didn't find either. So I'm going to take out Roast. Yeah, I kind of want Blood Moon. Still a little bit unsure on. I'm still a little bit unsure how good it is. Also, not sure if we need this pull from tomorrow here. I mean, we could potentially lock our opponent out with Blood Moon. That is a thing. Since we're on the play, we have a better shot of being able to do it. I'm going to take out a pull from tomorrow. We want the Anger of the Gods. The Electrolyzes for sure. Cryptic seems actually not great. I could see going down on Cryptic Command because our opponent does have cards like Dispel. Think we still need the bolts. Yeah, okay. Sure. I'm gonna try this. I'm not gonna have the Spreading Seas. I don't think Spreading Seas is enough. I think if we draw Blood Moon, we didn't see our opponent getting basics that game, so optimistically think that our opponent won't have basics in play and the Blood Moon will be very good. Alright, so we have Anger of the Gods, which as I was saying is exceptional in the matchup. I'm going to keep this. It's true that it's only a one-land hand, but we have double Sarin Visions. Unclear how good the Vendilion Cliques will be, but hopefully we'll be able to find enough lands to make this Anger of the Gods. You know, at least a 2-for-1 would be nice. So I'm going to get the Steam Vents here because we need double red in order to cast the Anger. And that's an unfortunate top 2 cards. So we also didn't draw a land off the Sarin Visions itself. So we saw 3 cards there. None of them were lands. So now we can see another 2 cards. We have our draw step and then a Sarin Visions card to find a land. And if none of those are lands, we are going to be in a world of hurt, most likely. Okay, we did not find a land. Still did not find a land. Wow. Okay, so we're not going to have a land for our second turn. We have one on top of our deck, so we're just going to have to hope that our opponent's draw is a little bit slow and that maybe a turn 4 Anger the Gods will get it done for us. So we definitely don't want to see the Cloudfin Raptor become a 3/4. That would be very bad news. Right now it's only a 1/2, so we could still win this game. We could definitely still win this game. I am going to sacrifice the Polluted Delta right now, I think. I mean, yeah, I think we want to sacrifice it right now. Alright. There's a downside if we do draw a 1-mana cantrip here, or potentially a Lightning Bolt. We would not want to, but it makes our scry so much better that I think we should. Okay, well, clearly going to bottom both of those. And now we are in a spot where, once again, saw 3 cards, did not see a land. So if we have an untapped land, we're kind of optimistic about that, right? If we draw that land, we're optimistic that it will be that that the anger will resolve, our opponent's creatures will be wiped off the board, and everything will be just fine. So the moment of truth, is it there for us? No, it's not there. So that's unfortunate. I'm just going to pass the turn here rather than play a Lightning Bolt and potentially run it into something like a Pongify. So in terms of what to discard, I'm just going to discard a Vendilion Clique. So I like playing the Lightning Bolt here. I'm just going to play it on this experiment one. Our opponent still has 5 cards in hand. That's a lot of cards. Fortunately, nothing we can do. And yep, we're just going to play out a Snapcaster, and most likely it's just not going to be good enough. Feel like we ran pretty poorly this game, so that's going to do it.